Florida State press conferences with Tommy Castellanos, Herb Hand, and more on Locked On Seminoles.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith, longtime college football recruiting analyst. Thank you for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. We are going to be talking about all things press conferences, depth chart, injuries, and Florida State's countdown for me, top players on the Noles. But we are going to start with the most important part. The quarterback has spoken, Tommy Castellanos. If you take nothing else from this podcast, the next little bit is important. I've got 6 points that I want to make as overviews from Tommy's conference with all the different people that came in for the presser. He was calm, cool, and collected, that's for sure. That's the first thing I wrote down, and it was very clear. Confident can be misconstrued, though. Tommy obviously made the comments not that long ago about Alabama, how they weren't going to be able to handle him, et cetera, and that's all fine. He's full of vigor. Good for him. But today's press conference was more team-oriented, talking about what they accomplished during fall camp. And as somebody who loves the game of football because it is the ultimate team sport, I loved his approach, his maturity, and how laid back he was. Like, Tommy is a pretty chill guy just sitting around talking, but when it comes to his ability to talk about football and himself, he's usually pretty hyped up. Today was a different Tommy Castellanos that I'd seen before in front of a microphone. I think the maturity and just being in college for a long time is part of it, but it's good to see. And I think it will show out well for Florida State on the field and in the win column because you need a quarterback that is cool under fire. Today, he got every question there was about how he was doing, about different players on the offense, who looked good, you name it, from every different angle. The Florida State media, as expected, came at him with anything they could. Nothing like mean or anything, but every answer just made sense. And that makes me feel good because you could tell he was at ease with what had transpired. Now that we're basically into Alabama prep week, they're starting a little early because it's first game. Tommy was ready to go. So that has me very, very happy. The most important thing, though, that he said, and there's just no way around it, it's the number one reason you win or lose games. According to Tommy, Florida State is healthy on offense, finally. Squirrel White, I would assume Landon Thomas, I would assume the offensive line, etc. They are healthy. It is ungodly rare to go through a fall camp and not have a major injury. Knock on wood. Knock on wood wherever you are. Florida State is healthy. That was great news. Now, I'm sure there's nicks and bruises, don't get me wrong, but I'm talking about nobody's just like, there's no doubt this guy's missing the game, blah, blah, blah. Landon Thomas was even back this past weekend, and he'd been the biggest question for me because he missed a lot of fall camp with some kind of ailment that they'll probably never disclose to the public. But if he's back, you got Randy Pittman, you got Marcus and Douglas. Even the tight end room is starting to fill out. So they're in a pretty good spot there. Running back room, Chroma, and all those guys, for as much as they run the ball, I'm sure they did a lot of power drills and guys hitting. To not have any of them out, that's awesome. Now let's just get into talking about what Castellanos brought up overall with the press conference. And that's just the work that happened in fall camp. He was proud. Like, you could see the smile on his face about it. It was pretty cool. I was surprised the way he said it. Like he said, games are supposed to be easier than practice. He goes, man, those were hard. But he was smiling when he talked about it. Like, he was proud of himself and his brothers. They'd been through what they had to get to this point of fall camp because it's a grind. And as I'll discuss later on with Herb Hand's press conference, he talked about that too. It is not fun, especially think about being out in the heat every day in Tallahassee. I mean, it's got to be horrid. It's got to be horrible. So good for them for getting to this point, again, healthy on the offense and getting stuff done. He feels really good about the offense, especially at receiver. Deuce, Squirrel, and he said, like, Boggs, said Javen Boggs is like a pro from day one. He said he's just a guy, flat out. And, you know, they're bringing along, he didn't name specifics, some of the other receivers, but he's happy there. They were talking a little bit about the O-line. He didn't give any specific. I'll get into Herb Hand with that. But he was also happy with that too. And it's a good part of what's going on with not just Florida State, but college football. There's a mess with offensive lines everywhere. He seemed pretty comfortable with it. I thought that, and again, Tommy's a blunt guy. I thought that if there was any problems, and I hadn't heard anything great about offensive line recently, just, it is what it is. Tommy didn't seem worried about it at all. Again, Tommy will let it rip. He is not a shy individual. So I took that as good news. Finally, with this, on the whole depth chart situation, I get the sense they've got a little more depth than they might have originally thought. Not like by just tons, but you have to have depth that going through a Tallahassee fall camp. You won't make it. So they've done a good job of balancing, getting work done, and not getting guys hurt. However, they did that. So that's great news. Also with him, he talked about the comfort that each other has kind of playing together now. They've gotten past. So I'm sure, especially he's talking about the receivers. He's not going to say that, but receivers and quarterbacks have a unique bond because it's all 100% timing. It's not about talent as much as timing. It's the most awkward spot in football. If the timing's not right, you're going to have Randy Moss out there. It's not going to make any difference. So to that point, Florida State was in a scenario where, quite frankly, all the talent they had out there on the field, Tommy kind of figured it out with all those moving parts. Like, they're going to have roughly 10 transfers start on offense. That's insane. That's a great sign. The only thing I was disappointed about, although I'm not surprised, he didn't really give any hints about depth chart stuff. I thought there might be some of that because he gave little injury info. There really wasn't anything. And then just overall, Tommy was really just confident. I felt good with his comments at everything that he said about throwing the ball, who he's getting the ball to, the players he's working with, his body language, how he delivered all that was awesome. So good for Tommy and good for the Florida State Seminoles. We need some good news going into the Alabama game, and I felt better about Florida State after listening to him talk to the media. When we come back, we're going to talk about the offensive line. It's more complex. There's a lot to get into there. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. This show is brought to you by OpenPhone. If you're running a business, every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you needed a service. If the first person didn't answer, did you wait? Probably not. You moved on. That's why you need OpenPhone, so you never miss an opportunity to connect with your customers. OpenPhone is the #1 business phone system designed to streamline and scale your customer communications. It even has an AI agent that handles after-hour calls, answers questions, and captures leads, so you'll never miss a customer again. See why over 60,000 businesses trust OpenPhone. They're offering Locked On listeners 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. That's openphone.com/LockedOnCollege. They'll even port over your existing numbers for free. OpenPhone. No missed calls, no missed customers. Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Take a moment, hit that notification bell, hit that like, subscribe, share this podcast, and comment down below. If you're using this on the go, going to the grocery store, going to the gym, or whatever, make sure you set it up for automatic downloads on Apple and other different apps. Let's talk a little bit about the offensive line. This is more complex. Obviously, it's not just one guy talking about a position. Offensive line's 5 positions, plus the depth, plus all the transfers. It is convoluted, so let's hit it running right now. Herb Hand is a blunt guy. I had a chance to cover him when he was at UCF. Great to see him at the podium because he's one of the few guys that I actually believe what he says when he's standing in front of a microphone. Said that they ideally, you got to have your 5, but he brought up a good point before I even got into it to speculate. I was like, I picked the perfect day to talk about O-line because Herb's at the mic. He said, you want to have a backup guard, a backup tackle, and a backup center. But he goes, this is the key. He said, sometimes on a team, your starter at like guard or tackle, he's probably your backup at the other spot too. He goes, right now we're working. We're not there quite yet, but we're working on our 5. Looks like probably he knows, but he's not positive. Jacob Rizzi, I know, has kind of made a move here lately. He mentioned him, Andre Otto, etc. But he also brought up that they're working on getting that depth. You need at least 8 guys that can play. You got to have a backup tackle in case somebody goes down, center guard. It's straightforward math. with that in mind, he feels better. Like he brought up Sandman Thompson, the true freshman that played at Cocoa. That's their future center. He brought up Andre Otto, who's taken a lot of strides. He brought up Lucas Simmons. He mentioned how Lucas and him had a conversation coming off the field the other day at practice. Lucas wasn't happy he wasn't starting yet. He said, do yourself a favor, Lucas. Go in and watch the film of you from the spring, early in spring, and then look at the film you've had here recently. Lucas did it. And Lucas realized then that he'd made a lot of strides. Now, is he where he needs to be as a finished product? He's probably not close, but I say this often. Offensive line is a lifelong learning skill. You're never done. You never take the final exam because every time you come up with something, so did a defensive end on a pass rush move or a stunt or how a defensive tackle comes around the end on a blitz package to try to confuse you. There's always something new. To that point, though, Lucas is a redshirt sophomore. He's still got 2 more years after this, so he's going to get his chance. But Gunnar Hansen, another guy that was at the press conference today, I'll talk briefly about him. All these different guys are working with him. He's going to get to see it from a bunch of veterans that they've got roughly 2,000 snaps, some of them more, over the last few years. Like Pettibone's played like 3 straight years as a starter. That's good news. So they've got the talent up front. Now it's just meshing it. And Herb openly admitted that. But like having Lucas and some of these guys kind of like on that doorstep, he said he's good. He said, the biggest step, though, is from good to great. Like that next step is hard. Herb really brought that up. So Andre Otto, Lucas Simmons, Jacob Rizzi. There's a lot of guys that are trying to get to that point. Are they ready yet? I don't know when it will be, but that's better than what we heard going into last year by 1,000,000 miles. It's not close. So Florida State, while their offensive line is not where it needs to be, in my opinion, I doubt any of you believe it is either, I was happy to hear that. Now, here's the other part. I am of the firm belief that besides quarterback, which is its own entity, center is the most important piece on an offense. Number one, it gets the ball to the quarterback. And number two, in today's college football where everybody scores a lot, defenses know that. So they're going to take chances. They're going to take a lot of chances in most of these teams. The blitzing's going up in college football, the number of stunts, faster, speedier guys to get to your quarterback. You got to be ready for everything. He went out of his way again. Every time Herb's spoken to the media, he's talked about this. Pettibone as a center, as a leader, making line calls, being respected across the board. That's the guy. For him to be a graduate student, a prior 3-year starter at Wake, Florida State really could not, truly could not have done any better than getting him. That's great news. To that end, I mentioned earlier, Sandman as a player that Herb had mentioned during the press conference. He just gave a lot of praise about how he had adapted, taken on the role. That's good news. Well, he's going to get a learn from a guy that's already played 3 years. Who knows? Maybe Sandman's your starter next year. It's possible. I don't know. But what I do know is there aren't many centers that are going to have as much experience. This is how Florida State was good in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s, and even that team with Jimbo in 13. They had players that watched, learned, and when somebody left, they inserted another good player. Practice is where you get better. That's something also that Tommy talked about. Like how hard they've grinded in practice has made everybody better. Iron sharpens iron. This football team is probably a little ahead of where I thought they were going to be, especially with as many injuries as they had in spring ball, based on the conversations. I thought Herb was going to come up there, just open in. I got my hand raised. If you're not watching on YouTube, hand raised. I'd be first guy in line for the following. We're in trouble if anybody gets hurt. And they still might be to a certain degree because losing offensive linemen can be catastrophic. But Herb feels a lot better now, I can tell you, than what he did early on, like Lucas Simmons in particular. They have taken big steps. Andre Otto, he wasn't very serviceable last year. He was pretty bad, but he had to play. He's going to get a learn a lot this year. He might play a little bit, but he's going to get a learn now. And then next year, he can probably be a guy. Florida State is on the cusp, finally, for the love of mankind, to have their own offensive line starting next year where they have several guys in competition that they've recruited out of high school that can play at the major P4 level. This is what it looks like. Praise the Lord. Praise the Lord. Hallelujah. So with that being said, I was pretty happy about it, but it still brings up the obvious. Herb said it himself. You need a backup center, you need a backup guard, and you need a backup tackle that you're definitely confident in. I don't get the sense that he's confident in any of that. They're on the cusp, but they're a year away from where they need to be there. So I'm just going to make the obvious statement. I do not care one iota what team Florida State's playing during any week this year, even the crap teams they play right after Alabama. If any of the starting five are not in the lineup for any reason, it can still go south very quickly. O-line is about chemistry and congruent play. Knowing your brothers. That's something Herb talked about constantly through the podcast. Some of these guys at other schools, when they were starting, they knew the other guys. Even if they weren't stars, they saw them every day in practice, how they work together. It's all meshing together now to a certain degree, but it's not the same as like Pettibone being at Wake Forest in year 2, or definitely not year 3. Same guys over and over and over. Reps, reps, reps. I use that phrase a lot. It's the same with O-line, man. So if they lose anybody, I don't care if it's the Virginia game. I don't care what crap team's on the schedule that week. And God forbid it's Clemson week. Florida State's O-line is still susceptible to problems this year. It's not going to be 2024 bad. But there's probably going to be a game this year where it goes sideways because somebody's out of the lineup. Your chances of playing 12 or more games with 0 offensive linemen out of the starting lineup is low. Very, very low. I don't get the sense that Herb is comfy by any means with the backups yet. They're just improved compared to where they were. But I'll take it. I'll take it. Compared to where Florida State's been, man, that's still a million miles away. Last year, they didn't even have a serviceable starting lineup. Not even close. So Florida State football has made big strides. And that's all you can really ask after a 2-10 season, in my opinion. When we come back, I'm going to continue with my countdown on top Florida State players. I'm going to go through quite a few of them here, knock them out, and give you a perspective on who needs to play well and why, right here on Locked On Seminoles. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy platform that lets you turn your football predictions into real rewards. Preseason is already heating up, and college football isn't far behind. So whether you're getting your eye on the big-name quarterbacks or breakout running backs, Prize Picks makes it easy to get in the game. If you're looking at an opportunity with the NFL this season, how about a prediction for Joe Burrow to win NFL MVP? And if you want to go outside the box, perhaps you're going to go with Saquon Barkley, arguably the best running back in the National Football League. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's Locked On College to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5. Prize Picks. Run your game. Let's finish up the show tonight talking about some of the top players on my list of players that need to perform well for Florida State to win. This is not who are the best players. These are the best players for Florida State to win, like the importance of them. Big difference. So I've already went through quite a few, gotten down to number 16, Micah Pettis. It's ironic. In a lot of ways, it's poetic because we were just talking about offensive line. And Micah is projected to be the right tackle, 350 pounds, 6'7", massive man, maybe even larger than 350. Florida State needs him, A, to be healthy, and B, to be the grinder. He's the meat grinder. Right? Matter of fact, that's his nickname. Micah Pettis, the meat grinder at right tackle. He's a very good run blocker, known for that a lot more than pass protection. FSU wants to run it between the tackles, some guard tackle trap. They want to do some duo, some zone, some different things. All of that is fine, but you got to have guys that really like it. And Pettis is just so powerful, it's not even funny. If he has a good year, if he stays healthy, Micah Pettis can help Florida State have one of the best rushing offenses in all of college football. Next up on my list is number 15, somebody also mentioned earlier in this podcast, ironically. Tommy Castellanos praised Javen Boggs, the true freshman wide receiver out of Cocoa High School in Florida. And he should. The kid has been great. by all accounts, he's going to win the job to start in the slot. He's going to be a power slot. He's a professional in terms of how he handles his craft. This is a guy that, man, there's a lot of pressure. If I didn't know he was definitely going to start when I first put this list together, I might have put him top 10. I got him at 15 right here. But let me just make a couple of basic comments. I'm still going to grade him all around, but the two areas I'm going to look at him the most, when Boggs has a chance to block, how does he handle that? If you don't block for your teammates, I don't care if you're a freshman or not, that's no good. And number two, when something goes wrong, he drops a pass, doesn't get a pass interference call when he should have got it because the guy was holding him, how does he react? How does he react? How does Boggs react to negative circumstances? Freshmen have to prove that, no matter what their accolades were coming out of high school, and he's the state of Florida's all-time leading receiver in terms of yardage. Pretty good number to have. So with that, I give you this. I still think that the other two receivers will have more receptions than him, but I guarantee you he will be a guy that comes out and grinds, especially with just catching the ball. He's got natural hands. He understands route running. He's been at Cocoa, which is a great program. No way around it. Boggs will have an impact on this team in a positive overall manner. Number 14 is Elijah Herring. Going to go ahead and call it. He will lead the Florida State Seminoles in 2025 in tackles. Right there, it could be a mic drop. But at the same time, there are two other things. One of them is probably even more important by a long shot, unfortunately. And this petrifies me, but it is what it is. When you install a new defense, especially one that's complex and is very, not a little bit, very different than the one you ran before, especially early in the season, there's a chance for busts, meaning guys just in the wrong place. They're going from a 4-man front to a 3-3-5 hybrid defense. A lot of moving parts, a lot of playbook. I'm glad they got veterans. Him and Stephon will play a lot, especially early in the year. But Elijah is a guy that's known as a tackler, a guy that's very consistent in the box, traditional linebacker. He will help with the defense getting set up. That is massive. And then also his experience should help him be able to play in different roles. They need him at Mike or Will. I expect him to be able to do that. Elijah Herring should have a very good year for the Noles. Number 13, I'd put an asterisk by this one now because he needs to be healthy. And right now, I'm not buying that he's completely healthy because he just came back. Landon Thomas, again, massive asterisk by this. Is he in game shape? I'm going to go a strong no right now. And as I get ready to do this, put this podcast up, it's less than 2 weeks away from game day. They need Landon Thomas wholeheartedly against Bama, but I digress. For the season, there aren't many tight ends like Landon Thomas in college football. 6'5", 240 or so, very athletic, big hands, long wingspan, very nimble. He's going to be a lot more powerful last year to get off of different bumps and chips at the line of scrimmage to get into his route, and, of course, to block for the running backs and quarterbacks. This is an NFL player. He's only a sophomore, but the physical gifts are there. Now, Randy Pittman, that's a guy that I'm just going to throw in here because it's a combination. I know you can't have two players as one, but the way Gus uses tight ends is extremely unique because they could be three of them in a game and they could be in 5 wide, or there could be 3 of them in the game and they've got 2 H-backs and a tight end. Like, it's wild. So Pittman's going to be, maybe he'll start because he's had the most reps in fall camp. He's been healthier. But long-term, for Florida State to achieve as a team what they need, it's got to be Landon Thomas because he's got the measurables. The 6'5" receiver down the seam changes how a defense handles you. He's got more upside than any other tight end on the roster. They must have a healthy Landon Thomas every game. And I know what I'm asking is probably not realistic because I don't think he's full go really by Bama, because my definition of full go is not only healthy, means you were in full game shape, meaning you didn't miss any reps in fall camp, which he missed 2/3 of it. It is what it is, but they got to find a way to make him resourceful, even in the Bama game. Next up, Richie Leonard. This one, he doesn't get much discussion, and I don't know if it's because Jacob Rizzi or Andre Otto or somebody's pushing him, or it's just because he's been around. He's just not discussed. He's the one holdover from last year that started some. It was a transfer from UF, but still, Richie Leonard's a guy that needs to play good for Florida State. They're going to run inside zone and power. You got to run through your cards. If Leonard's not good, Florida State's in a lot of trouble. Leader, he's a guy that's come back. He knows the offense. They have hardly any experience. I mean, it's insane how little experience the offense has playing together. They're just all transfers. This guy needs to hit the ground running as much as anything in the locker room and with helping younger guys and transfers with the playbook, all that stuff, things you can't categorize or put down for a statistic. Winter needs to be a home run in those categories. We'll see how that goes later this year because I'm sure that'll come out on which players were. Next up, this one's kind of fun because he's one of my favorite players on the team. Jalen Lucas. If Florida State's going to overachieve, like their FanDuel total is 7.5, if they're going to go over, he's going to have big plays. Bama game, Miami game, Florida game, NC State, Clemson. If you have a chance to win any of those games, Jalen Lucas is probably going to be a major part of it. Tackling him in space is about like trying to catch a rabbit with your hands at an open field. He is very elusive. Is he ready to be a superstar? I don't know, but he was an All-American return man at Indiana for transferring to Florida State. If he can give them a spark in just 3 or 4 games, it can change Florida State's season. Yeah, that's important. Florida State football needs guys like Jalen Lucas to step up big in big moments as a running back, more importantly as a receiver, and possibly even more so than anywhere else as a returner. The Noles need those hidden yards on special teams, and Lucas can definitely provide that opportunity. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk all things Noles. Hit that like and subscribe, share this podcast, and comment down below. Make sure you download this on Apple, Spotify, wherever. Hit that automatic download so you get them every day. We will see you again soon.